Hello, good evening. It's 5:47 in the evening, as you can see by the glare. Um, so I woke up really fucking early. I've been struggling to sleep for the past 2 days. The day before yesterday was the the like neck thing, the neck strain, and last night it was definitely like I woke up so many times. It was tough to get a good amount of sleep. So maybe got like 6 hours, but that was 6 hours waking up every like hour and a half or 2 hours. So that really, I've just been incredibly tired because I've been struggling with sleep. Um, it's not because the bed's like bad. It's just, I don't know. It's been tough. I So I didn't do too much today, but I did do a couple key things. First, at around 12, ended up talking to the guy for like 40-ish minutes, 45 minutes. Um, he's one of the organizers of the event. Um, I found out a couple things about it. First, the event got moved from Tuscany to I don't remember what it's called. Let me see. It's like Napalm or Nepal or something. Let's look at the exact thing. Oh, I was totally wrong. It's called Umbria. Umbria. September 4th to October 4th. Um, I'm kind of uh like it doesn't really matter to me if it was Tuscany or not. I think the Tuscany thing was more centered around signaling the idea to me to be even interested in interacting. Um, and I feel good about like whatever this is. Um, so we chatted about video games a little bit. Gave him a little quick like backstory, and which I'm getting faster at. I got it down to like 5 minutes, just pretty quick, 5 or 6 minutes. So just some basic highlight stuff, and then um, he kind of told me because I don't know too much about them other than what I've learned on the website and the video that I watched, and so he gave me a little bit of backstory on how they initially did something like this with a different like basically there was someone who organized an event like this, and they all met together in that event, and they really enjoyed it, and they're like, damn, we should do an event like that as well. um, because they're like, we want to like work on building a network, a community of like-minded people who all kind of are working on themselves and you know trying to um, be more connected in a disconnected world. And it's not necessarily about everyone doing the exact same thing. It's about everyone bringing something unique to the table. So he was talking about how the last thing that they did, they had like a fitness guy and like a boxer and like some other people, and it was just kind of like it was really cool. I think this is one that they hosted, and it seemed to go well. And this is all relatively new, and the Tuscany thing fell through. Um, for one reason or another, I'm not too sure. Uh, but yeah, um, I think it had something to do with the location, the actual like villa that they wanted to rent out. It wasn't big enough, and there was like a few things that just didn't work. And so they found this place, and this place is bigger, has like better rooms and better setups and all of that stuff. So yeah, he talked about like they have a total of 8 rooms. A couple of them have like double like beds, so there's 2 different beds in there that you can kind of share. And then there's obviously like the single beds and whatnot. Um, and I don't know. He even mentioned the idea of potentially getting tents for people who don't want to like have beds. Maybe it's cheaper. And I'm like, that sounds a bit interesting. Like, I guess someone might be interested in doing that. I sure as hell am not. So, um, yeah. Um, I don't know. We'll have to see kind of how things progress. I get the feeling that I'm probably going to be going to this thing. Um, I'm on their like list of like people that they want to bring. Um, the big thing is one or two of the other guys that are doing all of this, they want to like communicate with me. I think at some point, uh, which is great. Like that's totally fine. So yeah, the only thing that I'm kind of a little, it's not that I'm disappointed because I don't even know what it would be like there. It could be just perfect doing it this way, but it kind of sounds like there's not going to be a ton of structure. Uh, there's going to be like stuff that is kind of optional that they'll be doing throughout the day. Um, but yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see. There, the way he kind of described it is like they want it to be super organic and kind of people really. I guess the goal is you sign up with a bunch of people, you make friends, you interact, you live together for the month, and you progress on your goals while also potentially progressing on like teaching other people or like learning from other people. And yeah, so it's an exchange of ideas, that kind of stuff. So which I like. I think doing this will very much change the timeline on what I can and can't do when it comes to visiting different places in Europe, because I did the math. I'd be at 70 days once this 30-day excursion is over, out of the full 90 days before I'd have to leave um, the European area. And so 20 days, that's going to be like maybe like 2 places I could visit. Um, so it's kind of like, I don't know, like maybe that's Switzerland and France, and then I'm done here. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. Um, I don't want to be hard and fast stuck on the, well, now I have to go to Switzerland and then France. Um, so yeah, but it's interesting that potentially I'm staying in Italy for most of, or the better part of like 2 months. Um, I mean, actually, yeah, it'd be over 2 months at that point, 70 days. So, I mean, it will give me plenty of time to figure stuff out, um, and really get the ball rolling. And then my thought is, I mean, I could just go from Italy directly to um, Southeast Asia. Like, that's a thing I could do. Um, if I did do that, well, that would be. Well, when would that be? Um, so all of September. So it'd be like October, like the first week of October. I mean, second week of October, because the first week would be the first, second, and third. It's like the second week of October, theoretically, I could go there. October, November, December. It's like 3, maybe 4 months. I could stay for potentially like, yeah, 3 or 4 months in those different areas. And I'm not thinking about just the Philippines, but um, I don't know. We'll see. Uh, I realize, like, if I'm trying to make this a sustainable thing, it's not about going to 10 million different countries. It's about figuring out my long-term plan, and then kind of um yeah, just like, I don't know, just seeing how things work out. um I'd really, like, realistically, I don't want to put any dates on like when things should be like in a state where I'm launching stuff, but assuming that I do go and do this thing for a month, it would really give me a energetically a space where everyone is working on their craft and honing their craft, and being able to kind of like see people and interact with people. And yeah, I don't know. I think I think it could work out. So yeah. Um um so after that, I ended up I ate some food, and I ended up checking out the gym. It's on the first floor, and there's a gym and there's a really nice pool. And I looked at the hot tub, and there's like a nice hot tub. There's a sauna and a steam room. The gym is fine. I did a little walking on the treadmill because I knew I wasn't gonna really go out today. I'm just so tired. Um, so yeah, I think I think the plan. Here's my outline. The revised outline. It looks something like this. Spend the 2 weeks here, potentially see about maybe extending my stay to the 4th, because I have it set up to the 30th. It's the 31st, right? I have it to the 31st. And this stuff starts on the 4th. So theoretically, I could try and schedule my stay for like 5 more days. Um, so yeah, I'll see about that. Um, that would give me a bit more time to kind of like get everything locked in. And then from there, I take the train down. I'm probably going to take the train. I don't really want to deal with a some massive like plane thing because I'm trying to avoid planes as long as possible, knowing what I know from the friend that I made at in Rome. He was talking about how like they're really strict on weight. Now, it's not necessarily true that they're going to weigh your carry on, but they could. And if they did, my carry on's like 2 kilograms over on both of them. So so my thought is like, okay, if I only have to deal with planes once, that reduces the chances of me kind of having issues where I have to like leave stuff. Um, so yeah, and there's like, I think there's ways that I can kind of circumvent this by like having a like carry on thing where it's like, oh, this is the thing I'm like holding that I'm going to be using on the plane, and then this is the backpack is the thing I slide under, and then the box is the thing I put up top, and that reduces the weight. Um, so that's something, but yeah, I'll kind of cross that bridge when I come to it. There are some things that I can just get rid of, and it wouldn't be a big deal. So yeah. Anyway. Okay, so staying there through all of September and then kind of ending on the 4th. I think that's what it says. The 4th to, yeah, 4th to the 4th. So we're looking at October 4th is when I would potentially leave to Southeast Asia if I wanted to go directly to Southeast Asia. I guess it would really depend on like what happens while I'm there for the month, because it's very possible that, I don't want to like, I don't want to say it specifically, but it's possible that maybe one of the 10 people is the partner thing, or I meet someone that then is also traveling, and then I meet my partner through them or whatever. So, I'm just kind of leaving it open. Again, I'm not trying to put specifics down. I'm When I meet them, I will meet them, and that's kind of it. So, but yeah, my thought is, one option is continuing to use the last 20 days in Europe somewhere, or going and doing, like, I will say, they have, where is Portugal? Okay, yeah. So they have Spain. They have a thing going on in Portugal. Um, so theoretically, if I really wanted to, um, maybe I could spend the last 20-ish days in Portugal because they do it back to back. So it would be further away from going to from flying from Portugal to um, Southeast Asia. So that is something to think about. Again, it's kind of like dependent. So that's one option. Another option is to go to do the Switzerland thing, and then do the France thing. Again, the third option could be just going straight to Southeast Asia and spend some time there. Um, if I the Southeast Asia thing, my thought is um, and kind of the goal is to basically grind out all of my projects while going to a country that's it's going to be cheaper cost of living in general. So I could stay there theoretically for like, stretch my money a decent amount. Um and yeah, so that's kind of my thought. And then I don't really know past that because that's like we're talking like potentially January. We're starting to talk about like January at that point or February. Like who knows? It could be like a whole 6 months from September or no from October. So it's like October, November, December, January, February. It could be like March of 2027 before because you can stay I think up to 6 months in the Southeast Asian like I guess they're all kind of different. I was just looking at this. Like the Philippines alone, there's kind of uh, where is it? Hmm. Sorry, I'm just kind of looking. Yeah, here it is. Entry and exit requirements. Um, well, number one, do not overstay your visa. If you stay past the date stamped on your passport, you'll pay fines and face extra requirements to leave. If you stay for more than 6 months, you must apply for an immigration clearance certificate from the Bureau of Immigration before you leave. So my thought is, I don't want to have to deal with that extra BS. Leave before the 6 months, um, because you can kind of extend your stay for a couple months at a time. Um, so my thought is, okay, extend the stay to around 6 months maximum. And if I do let me do the calculations here. Um, I, I did the math with my friend, and he's been over there, and he's like, "Bro, you could live like really good on like 1,500 a month." So that's like $9,000 for 6 months, which is honestly pretty fucking good. Um, so like, I mean, theoretically, that's pretty doable. Um, so do that, and then I'm not really sure what the plan would be. Again, what the plan is after that. It's like if I'm staying 6 months there, I'm like getting close to a year, not a full year, but like 3/4 of a year outside the country. Um, so at that point, it's like I'll have had like 7.5 months of work time to really like get get a bunch of like stuff figured out. And like I should have a lot of content if I just kind of hone the grind to a daily thing that is usable and reasonable. Like here's an example. I'll do some more math. If, for instance, I'm not saying this is what you should do, but I'm just giving like I'm doing some math to show you why doing things every single day, having just a little bit of it every day, if you build the structure that way, and of course there's going to be an occasion here or there where you might struggle to do everything that you've planned, and then there are some days when you go over what you planned. But let's say you put an hour of effort on two different projects. So it's 2 hours a day. So for my instance, like let's say I spend an hour writing and I do an hour on like code work. Um, Theoretically, if I'm doing, let's see, 210, 220, we'll say 220 days of work, which is not counting the full time, but we'll say it's like 200 to 220 days. Hell, let's just say 200 days. That's 200 hours of writing, 200 hours of working on the game. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot until you think about, like, if you're doing a 40-hour week, that's, you know, that's effectively a little over a month and a half of like 40 hours of grinding. Um, Spanned out over this longer period where each day you have plenty of time to relax and let your creative juices flow. So you get like maximum peak time of an hour during that hour. Um, so, let's say you write 1,000 words. That's 200,000 words. And that's just an average. Like if you're on a roll, you might write like 1,500 words in an hour. So and there are times when you only write 600. So that's why I say the average is like an hour. But if you spend an hour writing, that's 200,000 words. That is a pretty hefty amount of writing. And if all I did was just do the writing like that every day, I mean, I mean, that's like probably at least one book if it was a traditional 300-page book. Um, well, let's see. Let me do the math here because I think 200,000 words. It's like 500 to 600 chapters of the like. Hmm. Okay. Well, anyway, my point is that like you think about it, and it's like I can just what, just because this is like curiosity's sake here. I'm gonna go to Royal Road. Royal Road. And I'm going to look up a random book. We'll do just completed. And oh my god, this is not. Okay, I'll just do the search. Okay, here we go. Advanced search. Sort by number of pages. Okay. I think the math, at least on my pages, it's like 500 words a page on average. So it's like 2 pages for 1,000 words. So, well, I mean that turns into 100. Well, no, hold on. Now I'm just struggling with math. Well, so if I'm doing 2 pages a day, that's 400 pages, right? Um, and you know that could totally just be a book. So, like, getting back to it, by doing that, boom, there's a book. And then when it comes to coding, um, I still don't know if I'm gonna use AI assistance when it comes to structural aspects of code, because I know AI is getting really good with code, and it would be nice to not have to worry about the boilerplate code. But it's tough because the moment you start using AI, it could be a slippery slope into just using AI for everything. And I kind of just don't want to fall into that. So I feel like even though it will take a little bit longer, and maybe objectively my code might be shittier, I don't know. Because if AI is getting as good as I've heard when it comes to code, um, it's possible that my code is just not as good. Um, Now, good is also relative. As long as your big O, like for a lot of your runtime, is pretty low, then theoretically, um, you handwriting everything means you have a very thorough understanding of your code from the ground up. And also, I'm using a game engine. So I'm not writing everything from scratch. The game engine has a lot of pre-built code. I will have to take a little bit of time, maybe a week or two, to really familiarize myself with C sharp, because C sharp is probably what I'm going to be writing in. I haven't written in C sharp in a while, so I'm going to have to like get back into like, okay, what are all the syntactical things I need to remember about C sharp? It's not a super challenging language, but there are some things that um, I'll have to keep in mind. But anyway, my point is like, if I just did those two things, And 2 hours is not really a hard ask, especially if you don't have any other commitments. Like if I was working 40 hours and then I had to do this, that would be a hard ask. Um, but because of my unique situation, it's like, okay, you have the golden perfect opportunity to really like build the game that you've been thinking of, um, and write this novel. And the novel, I want it to be past like, I don't want it to just stop at one book. Um, Ideally, I'd want to just keep writing because I have so much that I want to tell of this like universe that I've crafted. So yeah, but and that's not counting the idea of like, okay, let's say I do per day, which again, this feels like it's probably not going to be per day. It's probably going to be like once or twice a week. At which point, okay, 6 months. That's well, okay. If we just do an average of 30 days, um, uh, be like maybe like 50. Yeah, it'd be like 50 to 51 different like teaching materials if I do it once to twice a week. Um, and then obviously I'm doing this every day. So I will crest like effectively a year of doing the daily vlogs. So that's like three different. There's four technically. There's four different distinct avenues that I'm kind of tackling to bring forth something that can allow me to continue doing this in a more long term capacity without external, like having to go get a job. Because I'd like for this to be my job. So that's why figuring out the foundational stuff is important. Um, and it's like once the foundational stuff is worked out. So, okay, I kind of want to talk about this real quick. So I keep hammering the point in about foundation. Foundation, foundation, foundation. And it's really boring if you just think about it just purely in terms of like, okay, you keep talking about foundation, you keep talking about trying to figure out what works. What I'm doing is I'm figuring out what buildings need to be constructed, going back to the construct stuff that I've talked about in the past, where it's like, what construct is sustainable and enjoyable in the long term, to where if this was my daily routine, I could do it theoretically indefinitely. Now, obviously, I'm not saying that things can't change and evolve over time. They totally can. But if I find a rhythm that works, then it's almost like hands off the wheel, things just flow. And when you have a flow like that, where every day is effectively flow state, it's not exactly, but like when you're doing something you love, it's really easy to just dive in and just kind of lose yourself in it. And so what's powerful about this is it's like, I like to think about it in terms of games or design choices with, whatever. this is a late game strategy. It's setting up all of your stuff for the late game. So you may have many people, and this is kind of how I've existed throughout my whole life, is I always have set up for the late game, spending 10 years fucking working on my like inner shadow work, and clearing the backpack, and understanding myself and all of that stuff. This is like late game. Like, I dedicated, if I was to live to 100, which who knows, I could live far less than 100. I could also live to 100. I might even crest past a little bit past 100. I don't know. It's also very possible that it's like, I don't know, maybe humans can live to 1,000. And so, like, then that's a totally different thing, right? Because maybe we just discover how to stop and reverse aging, and suddenly now you can live to 1,000, right? Theoretically. Um, but assuming that, like, even if we assumed 80 years, that's an eighth of my entire life that I've devoted to, like, just healing myself. And then there is another, 20 plus years of my life devoted to um effectively, like, getting all of the difficult challenges that allowed me to gain all the wisdom that I gained through those 10 years of like healing and cultivating, where it's like those two phases needed to be coupled together. So it's like, and now it's like, it feels like I'm actually just starting my, like, the rest of my life, if that makes sense. And I'm 37, so it's like, you know, um, seems like I've invested a lot of time into this late game build. Now, I will say that it's fascinating that actually a lot of the success stories from a lot of these really wealthy people that have been self-made in one way or another, they only really crested their like success in their like late, like, 30s, 40s, maybe even 50s. It's like in this latter kind of period. And I think it's very interesting that there's a trend where we often think about our 20s and 30s as like the golden age of like peak physical human, um like energy and all of this other stuff. But we forget about the fact that you kind of use those periods of your life in order to build the true foundation for your next 50 years of life or more. And so the things you do in your 20s and your 30s, obviously your childhood does matter, right? But your childhood is something that is harder for you as a child to control in the traditional sense. Like, you can't just order your parents around. And you don't really have the cognitive capacity to even know what you want. So it's kind of like the 20s and 30s is you finding that out, and kind of building what is going to look, or what you're going to look like for that remaining 50. And obviously, you can keep scaling into the late game where it's like maybe you spend all of your 40s doing that as well. If you have the resources and you can spend the extra 10 years building an even more solid foundation, you can reach even greater heights. But the thing is, most people, when they're hitting this period, it's like it gets really scary to not really have financial stability if if you have no way of making income and you're still building the foundation to make your income or to do whatever it is that you're trying to do sustainably, because it doesn't have to just be income. It could be like building to a specific career position, and then getting that career position gives you stability where it's like, okay, now I can focus on doing other things other than climbing the corporate ladder or whatever it is, right? So there isn't one way to climb the mountain, and there isn't one way to build the foundation. Um, but yeah, so this is why I think it's so important, especially like if you are young and you're watching these videos, like just as every elder tells you, hey, you got to focus on this stuff and you got to do this stuff and whatever. When I say it's important for you to figure out your foundation of like who you are, that's not glamorous work. It's not going to get you um and have you do all the exciting things. But if you take a little bit of time each day to work on yourself, you don't have to just drop everything. You can live your life. You can spend 30 minutes a day, and maybe it takes you 10 or 15 years to do it. But if you truly dedicate just a small portion of your day each day, it's just compounding interest to help you in the future. It's like investing in yourself. And so this is where it's like, I listen and remember all of my grandfather's things he would tell me. And it's like damn. Like yeah, I was the kid that didn't listen to the elders' advice in my early 20s, and I thought I knew exactly what I was going to do, and I thought I had it all figured out, and I'm like, oh, they're old, they don't know what they're talking about, or yeah, but that's a different age and they don't really understand things. It's like, yeah, there are certain things that my grandfather didn't understand. He never used a computer in his whole life. He never used a cell phone. He never used a computer. However, he had some really insightful wisdom that, looking back, like if I would have went down the path that he kind of suggested for me, my life would be totally different. I like the current me, but it is interesting to see all of the things on like how he was effectively talking about planting the seeds for the foundation that will bring you greater success in the long run. And so this is kind of where the specifics are not what's important when it comes to these older figures telling the younger generation something. Because the younger generation sees things that the older generation doesn't, because they grew up in a different era. And the older generation may have seen that era, but they saw it from a different perspective. Whereas, Gen Z won't have lived in the era of pre-computers where you played outside. But they did live in an era where being incredibly tech savvy and kind of learning different software and all of this stuff, and then kind of unlocking the potential of just like being incredibly innovative. That there are a lot of Gen Zs who just are like making tons of money doing all sorts of crazy stuff, and they really didn't need much like in the way of like startup funds or whatever because they understood better than the previous generations how to kind of generate something from nothing. Um, so it's like that's where it's like it's you want to combine the innovation of being young and being able to see and dream of anything, and then combine that with the understanding that whatever you're trying to build, you need to build a foundation for it that will serve you in the long run. And I'm not talking about going to school or doing anything specific. What I'm talking about is cultivating the mindset, creating the structure for you to um, effectively give yourself peace every day and joy every day in what you're doing. Because it doesn't matter if you make $1 billion if you hated every second of making that $1 billion. You can okay, now you have $1 billion. The idea is like, oh well, I'll just make $1 billion and then afterwards I'll be happy. It's like that's assuming you're going to make the $1 billion. Not everyone is the 1% that makes the $1 billion. And so this is the trap that you can kind of fall into where it's like, yeah, if I just grinded for like 10 years, I can make something that like then I'll be happy. And you put off this happiness. And you see in your 30s you tried and failed a bunch of things, and maybe some of them were good ideas, some of them weren't so good, and maybe you were idealistic and you've kind of grown up and you realize that okay, like I can't do certain things, and you've learned, and that's all really healthy and good. And then you're like, okay, well in my 30s I'm going to grind really hard because I'm telling you I'm going to make the million or billion or however much money, and then I'll be happy in my 40s. And then your 30s come and go and you're stuck in the same position where you burned all of your energy chasing something that, maybe you did succeed, maybe you didn't, but there's a cost to that. I mean, we don't see that when we're younger. We don't see that there's a cost. Um, there's a cost to not eating healthy. You don't see it until your 30s and 40s and beyond. And really, even your 30s and 40s, it's kind of like you can start to see that there's like, oh, I cannot just not sleep for a day or two. Like, wow, suddenly it's like everything is fucked if you don't sleep. And that's just one small thing, right? Um, whereas, I remember being 18 and like drinking a Balls energy drink and being like, yeah, I just stayed up all night. I did my homework at like, 2 or 3 in the morning, turned it in at 4 or 5, went to class at 7, and then like, played WoW when I got home and then went to bed and, woke up in like 4 or 5 hours. And yeah, that wasn't a big deal. But there was a cost to that. So, um, but so this is kind of where I'm hoping that setting this foundation up that I've been building my whole life. I've been building this foundation my whole life. And I know the sturdier the foundation is now, the happier I will be going forward. Because I'm building my foundation on the premise of me having a fulfilling, happy life where I'm following my inner guiding principles. I'm myself. I'm not trying to be someone else. And the people who are meant to be in my life will gravitate towards me naturally. I just have to be open, and I have to be willing to put myself out there when it shows up. Imagine a scenario where I get to Rome and I never talk to the roommate. That would have gone way different. I wouldn't have been able to make the friend. Then I wouldn't have made the second friend that was only there for a week. And it's like, yeah, my whole trip would have been different. I don't know if I would be here. I might have been somewhere else. I definitely would have had a worse time. And so it's kind of like, this is why being yourself and kind of putting yourself out there is like a really important skill to have. Having the ability to interact with people socially. And you know what? If you're really awkward and scared and don't know what to do, you can just say that. You can say, "Hey, I want to interact with you, and I'm really awkward, and I'm just struggling. I just want to communicate with you, and I don't know how." you know, like this is like genuine vulnerability where you can just say the thing you're struggling with, and people do it all the time with language, where it's like, I want to communicate, but I don't have the language skills to do it. So I'm going to try my best to communicate. And sorry, my English is not good, you know? And it's like, yeah, that takes a lot of courage to say, my English isn't good, but I want to talk to you, you know? Um, but anyway, so my point is that all of these kind of things that seem kind of insignificant in the grand scale of things are actually the most significant. Your daily routine is what you do 90% of your life or more. The thing that you do consistently every day. This is what you will just do. And you get to pick what that is. And maybe you don't get to pick your full 24 hours. If you work a job, the job takes 8, maybe 10 hours, depending on how your schedule is. And it drains a lot out of you. So it's like, yeah, obviously you have to work around that. But also, you can pick jobs that maybe are not as glamorous as the jobs that you do have. And it's like, yeah, okay, I'm a garbage truck guy driving a garbage truck. Like, if that's what it takes to be able to give you a sustainable path to build up those daily skills, and it's totally worth it doing that. And obviously, I'm not saying everyone go be a garbage man, right? But like, sometimes we forget that it's not all about the immediate kind of needs, which I get it. Everything's really expensive and nothing pays well. So it's like, I get it. I'm literally like working, like, I have like a very finite amount of money and I'm like burning through it every day that I live here and every day that I'm doing my stuff. But I have the I have the belief in myself that I will create this foundation that can support me. And so it may be scary in the moment, but I know that building this foundation, I'll throw all my money away. Again, like, I have some money, but like, I don't have as much as you probably think I do. But I am willing to throw every penny that I have into giving me just a day more to build a more solid foundation, because it will give me the capability to rise higher with the buildings that I make. And that is kind of the long-term planning, the long-term thinking. Think about it this way. You buy an acre of property. You can build a certain scale of house with that acre of property. But if you buy 2 acres of property, it's going to cost more to build the house and, again, the foundation and all that stuff. But you can make a much nicer house with all sorts of, like, larger rooms. You don't have to skimp on as many things. And so it's like, you can have like a really nice yard after you've built your nice house, so on and so forth. Now there's diminishing returns. The first like 2 or 3 acres that you buy are significant increases. But the 50th acre is like very minuscule by comparison. And so this is where you have to kind of figure out where's the sweet spot on, like, okay, am I gonna be homeless for 6 months to build an extra acre of like foundation? That's probably not worth it. So that's where it's like doing the balance. And that's why I think going and doing the 6 months in what's it called? In like the Philippines and the Southeast Asian area. Because, to be fair, it doesn't have to just be the Philippines. I'm using that as a guidepost, but like, I could do Thailand for a bit. I could go to Cambodia. I could go to Indonesia, although, eh. Um, and then there's also like going to Vietnam. My buddy is going to be in Vietnam in December. So it's like, October, November, December. That's like 3 months. Theoretically, like, sorry, I got a little off track, but I'm like, theoretically, I could do a couple months in all the other places I wanted to go visit aside from the Philippines. And then I still think Japan will be like the last thing I do, where I'll go to Japan just because I've always wanted to go to Japan. But like, maybe I go to South Korea and visit Thailand and Cambodia, South Korea, and then go to Vietnam at the end of December. And then it's like, then from, Vietnam, I might spend like a month or two there. I don't know. Depends on, what my friend wants to do. But then from there, it's like, theoretically I could be in the Philippines for 6 months. So I could spend even more time there. And all of that is like, it's all contingent on the idea that um, I kind of build the foundation in this next couple weeks. And I also, it's not just the work stuff. Um, it is definitely a major portion of that, is like really like figuring out timelines for things, and like, the direction, and like what I'm trying to like hone in on, and then start like building it out. But like, the other thing is, I have, for the most part, just stagnated my health journey on losing all this weight, because I was doing really good for a while, and then I kind of just tapered off at that 260-ish range. And, I haven't weighed myself. I don't know if I've gone up or down. I think I've been about the same as I have been. Maybe I've gained a little bit of weight. I don't know. For the most part, I've been eating relatively healthy, and I've been walking for a decent amount. But that's where the cooking stuff, it's like, yeah, I got to start like doing cooking things of like, okay, well, what dishes are cheap that are like really healthy for me that I can cook, that like fit me, not fit other people, but fit me specifically. And one of them, in my opinion, is like the potato thing. Potatoes are pretty nutritious. Now, you obviously don't want to just do potatoes, but like, um, baking some potatoes, uh, and then, adding a meat, like some fish, or chicken, or whatever it is, right? And then some vegetables, and suddenly you have like a really solid meal that doesn't cost much and is pretty easy to make. So again, that's all part of the foundation. Um, which I've built most of the food foundation already. Like, I understand what works and what doesn't. Um, the main thing for me is it needs to be something that's easy to clean up once I'm done making it. So I don't want to use 10,000 pans to make it. It also needs to be relatively um, like easy to prep. I don't want to take 2 hours prepping the meal, because I just don't want to spend that much time on cooking. So, you know, I could figure out how to make a 5-star meal, but I don't want to spend, 2 or 3 hours making it. So that wouldn't work for me. Um, Whereas there are other people who love the process of making food, and it's like an art piece for them every time they make food. And so for them, it is worth doing the hour or 2 hours of prep work. So that's why I say, like, the foundation is a personal one, which again, harping back, I know I keep talking about it, but it's very important. You look back and it's like, well, how do you know what it is that you truly care about until you know yourself? If you don't know yourself, and you don't know like what truly resonates with you on a deep level and your foundational structure, then you could build a foundation that's perfect for someone else. And it's like, you're going to be super unhappy doing that. And there's lots of people who have done that. And they go through what a lot of people call the midlife crisis, which is, I've built a life for someone else, where I thought I was going to be happy doing these things because everyone said this is how you are supposed to be happy. And I realized that listening to them, it didn't make me happy. You know, getting the nice car, working 60 hours a week in a tech job where you're constantly overworked and you hate your life and you have like gray hair and you're half balding because you've been pulling your hair out for the past 10 years because of how stressful everything is. Like, is it worth it to buy a house that you're never in and a car that you're never driving, uh and potentially having like a wife and kids that rarely see you, all for you to find out, oh, holy shit, one day you drive home and you're like, I don't know who my wife is, I don't know who my kids are, I this house is unfamiliar to me because I haven't been here to be able to like make the house. So like all the decisions on like what the house looks like and all the decorations, none of that was me. It was my wife. It was my kids. And obviously you love them, but like you realize the past 10 or 15 years of you building this life, it's like it's not even your life. It's like someone else's. It's like a version of you that you kind of conjured up in your 20s thinking, yeah, this is what I want to be. And this is why it's a mistake to start building a structure in your 20s because you don't even have a foundation. So how are you supposed to build something if you don't even have the foundation? Well, the people who do just build and say fuck it, that's where the 40s come along and their building starts creaking, and there's some danger structural like problems where it's like I have to tear the whole house down. And now you don't have a foundation and you're tearing the house down, and it's like you're like mid 40s by the time you recover from something like that. If you catch it early, if you catch it late, you're in your 50s, and it's like, well, fuck me. Like, you're in your 50s with no foundation, and you're like, what do I do with my life? That's a true midlife crisis. And then you start doing the work that you could have been doing all along in your 20s. So, and I'm not trying to scare you. This is just kind of like, this is what happens when you don't think about these things. So, yeah. And I'm not saying everyone has this happen to them, but I see it so often that it's like, I don't know. It happens more often than it doesn't. So it's kind of like, I think about it as, do you want to flip a coin to just decide whether you're going to make the right foundation and the right house when you don't even know yourself? Like, I sure as hell wouldn't. Like, that sounds like a disaster. Maybe you get lucky. Maybe you don't. I don't want to be the unlucky one. I'd rather be sure. So, yeah. Anyway, I've been yapping for a little bit, but that's why I'm spending so much time doing this. And it seems like I'm not getting much progress done. It's because I'm really seriously testing things. It's like, okay, like, this morning I woke up and I listened to some music and I did some like yoga stuff, or not yoga stuff, some Tai Chi stuff. And it's like, okay, is that the first thing I'm going to do in the morning? I don't know yet. Like, I'm not sure if that's what it's going to be. It felt good. I'm happy I did it. But is it something I want to be doing every day or semi consistently? I'm not sure. I don't know. I feel like probably, but in what order am I going to do it? When is the best time to wake up? Is it early morning? Do I like early mornings? Do I like 8 o'clock? What about 6? 5? I could be one of I could do the grandpa thing where he woke up at 2:30 or 3 in the morning. It's like I could do that. I mean, it's an option. I don't know if it's a good one, but so it's like there are so many options. um, and that's kind of the beauty of life. Is it's like really figuring out like, okay, do you like waking up at 2 in the morning? If you do, great, do it. You know, if you don't, then don't. Fucking wake up at 12. Like if that's your ideal time to wake up, then just do that. Like who cares about what other people are doing? Now obviously you got to like plan around whatever your schedule is, but you can make your schedule work with whatever sleep schedule you want to make it. And so this is where it's like figuring out your likes, your interests, your hobbies, the things that light you up, the things that make your eyes sparkle, the things that get your heart racing, not the things that other people say get their heart racing or make them sparkle or whatever, because you're not them. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna. This is where I get those things hammered out, and you're gonna see a lot of weird shit when it comes to like, when I wake up, the types of food that I'm trying. I'm gonna do these potato things, and it could be a complete disaster. I'll show you guys when I'm done making it. Maybe I'll even do like a little cooking thing where I'll show you guys me cooking it, or at least prepping it. That could be a fun idea. But yeah, it's all about experimentation until something clicks, and then you're like, great, this is it. This is the thing I've been trying to figure out, and it's gonna look different for everyone. So yeah, okay. Have a good night. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.